From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Man, am I still pretty? And he's like, you ain't pretty, but you're going to be all right.
And now I'm just hanging on, looking at the wall, like flying this way. And I'm like, oh man, I got to let go of this thing at some point.
And then there's one that could literally pick you up.
Yeah,
It's
I'm not really sure about that, but yeah.
That's called a helicopter.
well,
And the last lap was just chaos. I mean, like 4 wide, 5 wide, dive bombing.
If you land it and send it into the fence, you're probably not going to get hurt. Bounce and then this insane roll, the car that Keegan was in. I mean, I don't know, it's the shape of the Beetle or what, but that thing sent it.
So I was the supercharger specialist on my old man's car with
Specialist?
Yeah, it sounds cooler than crew guy.
Hi, I'm Tony Stewart.
I'm Mario Andretti.
I'm Christy Lee.
I'm Alexander Rossi.
I'm Cruz Pedregon.
I'm Levi Jones, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to The Skinny. We're here at the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana. I'm Ken Stout. We have Michael Young back behind the controls. He'll be co-hosting with me today.
Yes, sir.
And unfortunately, Rico not able to make it. He is out on the NHRA tour having a little bit of fun, so we wish them the best of luck out there. We have a special guest. The beauty of being here in Speedway with our studio is you can make a phone call and get some pretty cool people to wander on over into the studio. Now, when I say the name of our guest, you might think maybe he was drafted and played for the Cincinnati Bengals, but there's actually 2 different Levi Jones, and the ones that we have in the studio is a 7-time USAC champ, former executive vice president of USAC, now in charge of INDYNXT for the Penske Entertainment Corporation. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Glad I could stop by. And when you told me I would get to take Rico's seat, I said, I'm all in. Let's do it.
It's the first time we've done this, so there might be some little pushback, but he won't know about it for a couple of weeks. So
Right.
We'll see if he's watching the show. Good stuff, man. Yeah, you've had a pretty crazy career, man. Extremely successful, of course, behind the wheel of a sprint car, Silver Crown car, midget, driving for Tony Stewart for many, many years, and then moved up into the executive ranks there at USAC and went back home, worked for the family business there for a little bit. But how did it all begin? What was your first foray inside of racing?
Well, I think my mom, she's still waiting for me to grow out of liking racing, right? So as a kid, I just loved it. My dad and my uncle had go-karts, something for them to do on the weekend, kind of a getaway, and I loved it. I spent a year talking them into letting me do it. We went, raced, and the rest is history, right? From 6 years old on, going to Tri-State Speedway in Hopstad, Indiana, to the sprint car and late model races. I can still remember that feeling of getting there during hot laps. I thought the world was ending, right? If I got out of the car and could hear race cars already running, it's like you're behind, you're missing out. So just infatuated as a fan growing up, and then kind of to run go-karts and run micro sprints for a year, and then get a sprint car to run a class for a new track they built close to where I was from at Red Hill Raceway. That didn't last all summer, so now we have a sprint car. What are we going to do? So you go to Bloomington, you go to Putnamville, you go to Paragon, and I wanted to be, Tony Elliott, Dave Darlin, Kevin Thomas, Brian Tyler. Those guys were bigger than life to me as a 15, 16-year-old kid, and kind of a 10-year overnight success story for me, learning how to race sprint cars, my dad and I learning about sprint cars, and then ultimately getting some great opportunities to pursue my passion and do it professionally.
So when you started racing, how long did it take for you to enjoy some success? Did it come fairly easily, or
it was not Kirk Spridgen, a good friend of mine since very early on, right? He went to all the sprint car races with his dad. We were friends early, actually lived with me. First year I drove at Stewart's, and then worked together at USAC, kind of 2 men in a truck, right, at USAC. So he always gives me hell about that, right? It took me forever. I think I won a sprint car race at Paragon in 98, and then I didn't win my first USAC race until 04, end of 04 at Charlotte.
Oh, wow.
So it was...
So, and to put a timeline on that, when you started, it was early 90s?
Yeah, so I ran...
I mean, you were a kid, obviously.
Ran go-karts at Southern Indiana Racing Association around here, street race stuff. And I think my parents just got tired of traveling so far and thought, well, if we get a micro sprint, we can go to Charleston, Illinois. That's, less than an hour from home, be easier. And then we got a sprint car, and went all over.
So we have Levi Jones inside the studio with us here this week. We're going to take a quick break. There's a lot to ask this guy. He's heavy into the industry. What was it like to drive for the man?
I mean, it was the best, right? Because he was a driver and a racer, right? First, foremost, all the way through.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. Innovation is our life force.
Once again, welcome back to the Skinny. We have Levi Jones inside the studio with us here today. How about 5 USAC national championships, 2 Silver Crowns, 35 career wins, I believe it is, if I'm not mistaken, throughout the course of your career there at USAC, including all 3 disciplines, including midgets as well. So a little taste of everything. And I think all of your sprint car championships were with Tony Stewart, except for one, the very first one. Was that family car owned still?
No, I actually drove for Scott Bennick out of Fairmount, Indiana, Lucas Oil car there, and kind of, launched my career, so to speak. We won the first. I filled in for Boston Reed, was hurt in '03 in Sprint Week. A couple races, and then started with them full-time Sprint Week of '04, and we won Indiana Sprint Week and won my first race at Charlotte the end of that year, and came back in '05 and won the most races and won the championship, and Tony called me to drive for him.
Wow,
what was that like? When Tony, I'm sure he was another person that, I don't want to say you looked up to, but obviously Tony, a name in that world.
Looking back at it now, it was hard for me to leave what we had built at Scott's, and the program we put together, and we kind of had built a World of Outlaw team to run USAC sprint cars. I had lived in the shop there. I was engulfed with it, right? That's all I cared about. And then to leave there, I really actually thought, just to leave there to run a sprint car, I didn't really want to do that. So I was like, if I could run the Silver Crown car, and then I decided to run a second midget, I was like, okay, this is what I've been trying to do my whole life.
So it was, I want to make sure I'm not confused here. It was difficult for you to leave the situation you were in to go to Tony Stewart?
Yeah, because I really, just to one sprint car ride to another sprint car ride, I thought, we beat both of Tony's cars, right? It was we were rolling along.
Yeah, it was just a sidestep at best.
Yeah, we had ran the Mopar engine, Gertie engines, had built our stuff there, owned a couple of them. We'd won with the Mopar, set the track record at Eldora, won 2 nights in a row at Terre Haute. So we things were really rolling along. There's nobody better than us, right? I felt like me individually and as a team. So unless I could do the whole thing, right? Like I said, when I started, I wanted to be those guys that ran, sprint car and Silver Crown and a midget. And I had never really ran a midget till that point, just been a sprint car guy, and kind of all came together in '06. We started there, and, stayed there all the way till the end, really, for me.
Looking back on it now, are you glad you made the move, or do you feel like you would have been able to be just as successful?
No, absolutely. To not only to be able, I've told Tony this before, that, what he was able to do for me made it where I could accomplish my goals in racing, right? I never dreamed of being able to win a USAC sprint car race, let alone being an IndyCar driver or a NASCAR driver. So to do what I did, it was awesome, right? It was great for my family. It was fun. It's those memories are great, to win at the places I got to win and do the things I got to do. And then also learn, like being part of Tony Stewart Racing, working with everybody there from Brett and Misha, all the crew that I had over the years there, and working with partners. That's what it's about, to be associated with all the partners that Tony Stewart Racing had and everything that went on there. I didn't really think about that at the time, but it was all learning, right? It was all part of education and motorsports for me.
We see him now as a team owner for NHRA, and it would at least appear from the outside that his temperament is a good bit different than it was during his racing days and his intense days there in Cup. What was it like to drive for the man?
I mean, it was the best, right? Because he was a driver and a racer, right? First, foremost, all the way through. I mean, he understands what you go through, as a driver and the whole gamut of your emotions and what can go wrong, what will go wrong. So that was fun. Probably some of the best takeaways from that would be those 2 a.m., 3 a.m. phone calls when he's driving home from somewhere, and he knows you're on the road going back, and just talking about how the races went, what we could do better as a team, how we can make things better in life, right? So those were probably the coolest things of being part of that program.
Yeah, and it seems like he just feeds back pretty much what is given. I think if everybody does their job like they're supposed to do, or at least tries as hard as possible, he's not a hothead. He's not a guy that's going to yell and scream about something. If you don't do it a couple times in a row, you probably perks up a little bit.
Yeah, right. He gives you all the tools. People are in place to do their job. You treat it like it's you treat it like it's your own team and your own money. It's all good.
Stay with us here. We're going to take a quick break once again. We're going to ask him about the family business. You might be surprised at how baby chickens can help your mail delivery.
Had a restart at the end. He passed me going into 3, coming to the checkered. So that was
just that one.
That's one.
Just
right?
that one, Michael. It popped
one.
right up. It was pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We're here in Speedway, Indiana, just down the road from that place called Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Levi Jones inside the studio with us here this week. Newly appointed to INDYNXT for the Penske Entertainment Corp. Congratulations on that gig. That's a big role for sure. Did you ever have any desires as a racing man to drive over there at the Speedway?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, you get close to the Speedway, you can feel its presence, right? You want to be there. And, in my driving career there towards the end and USAC putting together the Drivers' Championship deal and, to race with Brian Clausen, I'm happy that I got beat because Brian was the guy, right? Better, younger, faster, the opportunity to do that. But, it was cool to have that the chance to do it at the end of my career. And like I told Robin Miller, I said, man, I'm too, I'm past to do this. I need a young guy in there to run the 500. So it's all cool.
Did you ever have an opportunity to get into a car?
I never did.
No?
No, I talk about that with Kevin Blanche at IndyCar before he went to IndyCar, I think 19 or 20 years ago, he was with Panther, and they did the driver where USAC drivers got to go and test, when I think Jack Hodenshield and Derek Davidson, Tony Elliott and Dave Steele, all those guys got to do it. And that was kind of the start of my driving career. I wanted to be those guys, right? Never got to do that. So I feel like, some of those things that USAC kind of in my prime, maybe some of that stuff slipped away. So to come back and work there and make it better for the teams and drivers was a goal of mine. So I think I accomplished a little bit of that.
With the Brian Tyler, Brian Clausen, those guys, did you ever talk to them about what it was like for them and to correlate running a sprint car with running an open wheel car?
Yeah, I did. I mean, and really it's you don't take anything, specifically from a sprint car to an Indy car, right? I mean, I think you see it in all forms of racing today. You take that mentality, right? Starts, restarts, passing, overtaking, all of those things you do. The craft of racing, but to bring something in like, hey, in the old days, we can say the old days stuff that AJ did or were able to bring in. I'm not going to bring in a spring or a shock or a damper and say, hey, I ran this at Knoxville. We should put this on for Indy, right? So those things aren't the same, but to to have the craft. You look at the best race car drivers in the world, their race craft is amazing. How they can recall a race is amazing too. I think I don't know if a lot of regular fans think about that, but when you're listening to drivers talk about the race afterwards and they can recall to the nth degree, I know that they're plugged in and they're at the top of their game when they can do that.
Now that you're past your driving career, do you ever lay there in bed at night and think about one particular race, maybe something that was really successful, or probably more likely something that got away?
Just losing the Hoosier 100 to my teammate Josh Wise in 06. I led the whole race and had a restart at the end. He passed me going into 3, coming to the checkered. So that was
just that one.
That's one.
Just
right?
that one, Michael. It popped
one.
right up. It was pretty fresh.
Yeah. And it took me, until 2013 to win the Hoosier 100. So to do that was kind of made me feel okay. It was after I had my neck worked on at the end of 12 and came back and won that one. So you know what? I'm good with it. I've been there, done it. Good enough for me.
Want to get the skinny on other guests and different types of motorsports? Check out our YouTube page and get the skinny.
Once again, welcome back to the Fatheads Eyewear Studio. Ken Stout, Michael Young back there chiming in a little bit today. Nice to have him with us as well, and a lot of rapport here with this guy, Mr. Levi Jones. And Levi, we're going to get off track here a little bit. Enough about the racing for a minute. Let's talk about, is it pronounced Onley, Illinois?
Only,
hometown?
Only.
Only.
It's Olney, but it's Olney. You've never been there?
Well, if I have, I didn't see it.
You didn't go there on purpose, right?
I blasted through, apparently.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the family business and how you were involved, because when you got out of racing, you did go back to the family business and stayed there for a few years, and then eventually morphed your way back to USAC and eventually become executive vice president there.
Right. Racing always sucks you back in, right? Yeah. So my grandma and grandpa started their own Rural King in Olney in 1964. Built it up from that one store to now the group has 6 stores in Illinois and 1 in Tennessee. My dad has 6 brothers and 2 sisters. So there's a lot of them involved. My parents grew up in Olney. God
bless your grandmother, by the way.
Yeah.
9 kids.
Yeah, she still lives on her own. She's in Olney. But my mom and dad grew up in Olney. And then in 2010, they opened a new store in Swansea, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis. So my mom and dad moved there. Heidi and I, we moved there January of 10. It was a building, 82,000 square foot building that sat empty for about 10 years. So we spent the first 5 or 6 months, 20 hours a day, seemed like most of the time, getting that building ready to open.
Every hour
summer,
that you were working, were you thinking it was more fun to go racing?
It was actually when you look back at that, right? So that was 2010. I actually won the Sprint Car Championship and the Silver Crown Championship and 10 USAC races that year. And I really don't, it's hard to even remember the races, right? Because it was like, hey, we've been working, we've been doing this. When I go race, I'm going there to kick their ass and come back, right? It was like ultra focus for me. We'd had Ava was young, Crew was just born, so it was busy, crazy time for us, but we got it all done.
So describe the store, the family store, for me. Would a Tractor Supply be a good indicator of what kind of store it is?
Tractor Supply would be about like a third of what Rural King is, right?
Oh, really?
I always say Tractor Supply is a wannabe Rural King. So
see how
they have about a third of what you really need. So me growing up, it was just the store. If you couldn't get it at the store at Rural King, you didn't need it really. You go to the grocery store or Rural King. From clothes to anything you need for your yard or home.
What was your description of it, Michael?
What did I say?
You said you could walk in and...
Oh, you can get popcorn and you can get some Kentucky bluegrass, a chicken, and a handgun. You got it all right there.
Yeah, it just
Well,
blows
you
me
didn't say
away.
chicken. I
right?
said you might as well pick up a chicken while you're there. I didn't know if they had them or not. I thought of Tractor Supply. I'm like, sometimes you walk in, they have those little baby chickens running around, and you said absolutely they have chickens.
Yeah. It still blows me away that you'll see a Starbucks line have that many cars in it and pay $5 or $6 for a coffee. Well, the coffee's free at Real King, so that means it probably doesn't cost $5
But is
a
it
cup.
Starbucks coffee?
It's better, right? Because that stainless steel coffee pots had coffee
Years
in it
of
from years
seasoning.
and years and years. So you can't replicate that. And then you talk about the chickens, right? This time of year, I was in the Real King here in Avon yesterday, and the chickens in there kind of have flashbacks of when the hatcheries ship the chickens overnight in their cardboard containers through the Postal Service. Sometimes in Swansea we would struggle to get the mail, for 3-4 days at a time. You're thinking, what in the world? Hey, when the chickens showed up, they were calling the store as the minute they rolled in, and we'd
They did not
run
want the
down
chickens
there and
hanging
get the
around. Huh?
chickens. So yeah, it's
And that's how it helps out the mail delivery. You just got to order some chickens along with it.
right. Yeah, all those stories, and to work with my dad and be there for those 5 years, really unbelievable learning experience working with the public, to deal with people that are pissed off, people from all age categories, different needs, wants, shoplifters, those stories. We could have a whole show about my 5 years of dealing with that.
Well, that's pretty crazy. And there's a store in Avon? I didn't know there's a store in Avon.
There is, yeah. It's one of the Mattoon group has over 100, over 100 stores. So my family's not part of those, but my grandpa was one of the first 3 when they started those.
Wow.
There, and a couple years
I'll
later,
have to look one
handshake
up. I
deal
might
and
have to go
opened his
by and
own.
get a chicken. I mean, we have
We'll go after the show.
what's the holiday coming up here in April? Oh, Easter.
It's
yeah,
called
it'd be
Easter,
Perfect,
yeah.
right?
Price of eggs, right?
There you go.
The price of eggs. Well, the ones we were talking about were already walking around. So, all right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're going to ask him a little bit about INDYNXT. But they'll have that same group of people in Indy Lights, so that will be seamless as they
That's
move
$1.
up into IndyCar. I'm sorry?
That's $1. Indy Lights. It's INDYNXT.
There it was.
Buzz,
There it was.
You said it was $5. I'm going with him. He said,
We have a $5 jar. The Skinny is brought to you by American Coach. American Coach. Innovation is our life force. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear. Hardcore since '04.
welcome back to the Skinny. We have the new director for INDYNXT. Is that proper term, director?
That is correct.
What I call it that? For the IndyCar series, we should say. And, of course, the series formerly known as Indy Lights. They've changed the name, and we're all struggling to remember it. Enough so that you said you were going to actually create a shirt for it. So, Levi Jones, you're in charge of all that after honing your skills, I should say, behind the desk, if you will, or on the executive side of racing there with USAC for a number of years. And obviously they saw something in you at the Penske Entertainment Group and brought you over here to be in charge of this. It came back in-house from Anderson Promotions. That had to be a big decision. I'm sure plenty of meetings. And when it came back in-house, they decided to put you in charge of it. Congratulations, man. That's quite an honor.
Yeah, thank you. It's been, it's been a little over a year. We just had St. Pete, so my second St. Pete event. Going to those facilities last year, places I haven't been. Race control. Where is it? How do you get there? What do you do? All those things. And my experience at USAC of getting kind of thrown into the fire of dealing with not only drivers and teams, but the promoters and the events and scheduling and all those things. Now where I'm at IndyCar, we have a staff of right at about 40 full-time people at IndyCar, but having people that work in Marcoms and people that work with promoter relations and competition and operations, to be able to lean on really great people to when INDYNXT came back in. My position was new. We hired one coordinator, Shelby Harris, new position, and then to have one specific technical person. So just those three new positions were the only ones that were added to the IndyCar thing. So we use, we use Max and Ari are the stewards. Kyle Novak's the race director. All the same layout as IndyCar. So try to emulate IndyCar as much as we can for all of those reasons. So drivers, engineers, mechanics, team owners, to kind of dip their toe into the IndyCar world a little bit, so to speak, because those most likely be the people that move up to an IndyCar team, whether it be an owner, a driver, a mechanic, an engineer, stuff like that. So that's our goal.
It's a great point. I mean, the consistency there, and you were talking about the race director for IndyCar, Kyle Novak, Ari Leindyke, and Max, who help Kyle make those tough decisions from time to time in IndyCar, but they'll have that same group of people in Indy Lights, so that will be seamless as they move up into IndyCar. I'm sorry?
That's $1. Indy Lights. It's INDYNXT.
There it was.
Buzz,
there it was.
You said it was $5. I'm going with him. He said,
we have a $5 jar.
As they go from INDYNXT up there, but that consistency of how things are going to be handled and how they're done will pay dividends, obviously, to those people.
Absolutely. It's been really fun to be part of that system and not have to recreate something all new, right? We kind of have a game plan. A sports guy, that's what you need. You need a good game plan to follow through and do it. And I think a little bit of that is already shown, right? We can sit here and say how all this, we're going to do this, this is what it's going to be. But until it's done and people actually see it and see what we're trying to do from operations and competition and even the tech side of it and how we present that. We did that last year, right? You go from a few races with 12 cars or 13, a couple with 14, to have what we have this year of we had 19 cars at St. Pete. I think
what a massive turnaround from last year.
Yeah, so just try to be in communication with all the team managers and the drivers as much as possible. We all want the same thing. We want it to be really good for everyone. So just plugging away at it, right? You just you do the work every day. Just there's no big leaps and gains to make. You just got to do the work every day in communication with Dallara, our partners at Dallara and Firestone. Switching tires to Firestone this year to be on the same stuff that IndyCar series is on. It's all moving along pretty well. So we've got a test coming up here at the Speedway on the road course, and then right into our next event at Barber.
Was that a bad day for Kevin Miller when you had to walk into the office?
He actually thought I was joking at first.
President of USAC, by the way, Kevin Miller.
But Kevin has been great to me, and really, like I said, my first year at Tony Stewart Racing with Mopar, Kevin was the director, right? He was the one that made it happen on Mopar's side. And then when he came to USAC, in some pretty lean years, right? Some of those years when I was winning races and championships, I always give him a little bit of grief about, he stopped getting the championship rings. We got watches. So, like my span there, I have some USAC championship watches that nobody else has. I always say AJ.
Rare back in the day.
Yeah, I say AJ doesn't have those watches, right? So, but and to lead USAC in a little bit different direction of broadening what all is going on. In the when COVID hit that year, it was a good thing, right, that we had more going on than just midget and sprint car racing. But I always say nobody in midget or sprint car racing wants to hear about that. They don't care about anything else that's going on. But it's in a good place. And when I came in to tell Kevin that, he thought I was joking, right, because we've been working on stuff for next year. And so then after he realized that I was serious, he said, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they call you? Why wouldn't they want you to do it? You're the guy that can do it. And so I still help those guys as much as I can. Nikki Klepper is trying to help organize the Benevolent Foundation.
Use a famous name if you're going to say her name.
Yeah.
Nikki Wilkie.
Wilkie, yeah.
Sorry, Rob.
So, she's been there for a long time, helping keep things going over there, and she's trying to help out with the Benevolent Foundation. I said, I'll donate my time and drive the 2-seater here in April at the midget race at Kokomo. So, I owe a lot to USAC, right? My driving career and working and learning there. So, to to move on from there. And even Roger said, he goes, "Hey, we want USAC to be in a good place," right? So that was a big part of it for me too.
Super cool. As you saw, I already have to pay a penalty for calling it Indy Lights. So when we come back, we're going to find out where the name INDYNXT came from.
We work closely with all of them at Firestone, and we just thought there was a great opportunity to rebrand the series, figure out different ways, test ways we can go to market in a new world, right? You know, social channels, digitally, younger fans.
Welcome back to Speedway, Indiana, and the Fatheads Eyewear Studios. We have Levi Jones in the studio with us here on the Skinny, and of course, the best stuff always comes up while we're at commercial break. But you just sat there and you said, "I told Roger I wish he would have called me 20 years ago."
Right, when you're
clearly to put you in a car, right?
That just proves that there's a bigger plan, right? God has a plan for us, and sometimes those things you want don't happen until a different timing schedule.
There you go. For the fans at home, too, you might not realize this, but the USAC main offices are directly across the street from the Speedway. So that interaction has always been there.
Yeah, and you know, really for me, when we started the dirt track project at the Speedway, right, to work with all the people at the Speedway, at IMS, with Doug Bowles and Jason Penix and, you know, the whole crew there, that was really where I, you know, started. I spent that first whole summer a lot there, right, trying to get that going and how we did it. So that was my first interaction with the whole team there, and you know, just like you said, the USAC office being all redone. I was part of that project. You know, with 17 leased office spaces in there. It's you know, that piece of land is not that's pretty prime right there.
Yeah,
so it's a beautiful space there now, and a great addition to Speedway and the history of racing, right?
INDYNXT, you had the moniker Indy Lights, which, my gosh, it's about as household as it gets. The reason why, and I think a lot of fans bemoaned it as soon as it happened, why the change in the name, and what direction does that help take the series?
Yeah. Well, I think we all know race fans aren't always the most positive, right?
They don't like change.
Right, especially in racing. So, you know, with this year's tire coming back to Firestone, we work closely with all of them at Firestone, and we just thought there was a great opportunity to rebrand the series, figure out different ways, test ways we can go to market in a new world, right? You know, social channels, digitally, younger fans. What can we do? So, kind of the notebook or ways we can go to market are endless for the INDYNXT series. So, to have a new name, you know, tackle those avenues the best we can this year. And I think, you know, just following up with the drivers and teams after St. Pete, there's really been a big splash for INDYNXT series on all the social channels. And I talk about, you know, we're building their brand. You know, you look at drivers over the course of their career. And I think you talked about myself earlier, right? It took me 10 years for people to even want to buy my know that who I was or buy my T-shirt, right? So we're trying to build their brand, and if we can do that while they're in INDYNXT, not only the driver but the team, all of those things. So when they go and win the Indy 500, we already know who they are. Someone is already wanting them to win before they win it. So those are just some of the things that we want to do in INDYNXT, and have a fresh start, a rebrand, and push forward new ways.
So is Henry Malukas on the Christmas card list?
Yeah, they definitely, you know, I think everyone knows Henry bought the old grocery
Marsh
store
over there,
in Brownsburg, and they're moving there. Just you know, what a great story, right? A guy that
we had his son on the show, and I mean his parents' story is incredible.
You know, they just got after it. You know, worked every day, getting after it. Wonderful personality, a joy to be around. Great for the series.
Smile on his face all the time. And what the reason I bring him up, ladies and gentlemen, his son currently competes in IndyCar, but they came out of Indy Lights, and now HMD has a huge presence. I said it again, INDYNXT. But they had was it 9, 7, or 9 entries at St. Pete?
Yeah, currently have 9. So the Force Indy team is ran out of the HMD shop now. AJ Smith, team manager. I think they have right at 50 employees, so that's great for our industry, right? And
unbelievable.
And Mike Marini at HMD, handles a lot of the driver contracts and stuff, and just keeping it all sorted. It kind of blows me away when you think about keeping
that's
9.
a big animal.
So and then you have them. You have Andretti has been a staple in the series.
Sure.
With 4 cars. With last year all 4 of their drivers won races, which is a huge accomplishment. You bring in a driver in Jamie Chadwick. She's known around the world. That is great for the series. They have championship contenders, and then the Louis Foster was a champion last year, so he's running this year. Mucos Hollinger Racing came back, had been out of the series for a while. They were fast right off the bat. The Cape Motorsports team with 2 cars, with the a driver like Jagger Jones and the history there, to have him and so just great to have new teams coming back, and teams adding cars. So that's a positive,
for sure,
positive thing
in INDYNXT. So once again, we're going to find out about this name INDYNXT that I struggle remembering here. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more from the Skinny.
I don't want to see any of those drivers' careers done driving before they're 18 or before they're 25, right? Let's give them the tools and let them learn. And everything has to happen so fast right now in today's world. Sometimes things take a little while.
The Skinny is brought to you by Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. And American Coach. American Coach, innovation is our life force.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Levi Jones inside the studio with us here today, the race director for INDYNXT, formerly known as Indy Lights Cars, just to put that all in perspective. And I've already called them Indy Lights Cars, I think, 3 times on this show. Michael's part of IMS Radio. Who's leading the group over there that has to put money in the jar?
Davey Hamilton. We pretty much have.
He's an old school dude.
There's a steakhouse in Indianapolis called St. Elmo, and Davey will be buying us all dinner by the end of the year.
That's an expensive buy right there.
That's a Davey Hamilton for a season saying Indy Lights and not INDYNXT.
He's going to be like, just put me on 1 hour of the show. I mean, if I have to call the whole race, it's costing me more money than I'm making.
Exactly.
We love Davey. He's a great guy. Let's talk about the name. Where did that name come from? Why make a name change with something that has been branded that way for near 20 years?
Just a fresh start, the rebrand of it, working with Firestone. Just a fresh start. We have a new logo, the series logo, and just how we're going to go to market, different ways we can do it. We have a plan that's spelled out over the course of the year, so it'll be interesting to see, and new followers and new eyes on the sport.
So you talked about the depth of the field. I mean, near 20 cars there at St. Pete, and when COVID hit, one of the races that were taken off of the schedule was the Freedom 100. Super exciting race. If it's not the closest finish, it has to be certainly top 5 closest finishes of all time. When it was called Indy Lights, I think there were 3 of them side by side that went across the stripe here just a few years ago. So incredibly cool racing. Certainly a ton of experience before you would get somebody out of that level of car and into an Indy car to have those laps around that speedway. So important. Do you see that Freedom 100 coming back?
Well, if I had $1 for every time somebody asked me about the Freedom 100, I could cover Davey's tab at St. Elmo for sure. But incredible race, right? No doubt about it.
But it also pays dividends before they get in that big car,
right? And that's the conversation. The point that we try to cover, right? Of getting drivers oval experience before they get into the NTT IndyCar series, right? So we do a series test at Iowa, at St. Louis, and then we race at Iowa, we race at St. Louis, and hopefully give the drivers the experience of running oval. I mean, you know, you look at our driver roster, a lot of them do not have much oval experience, if any, at all. So, you know, running those cars, you know, going fast, right? They're not slow. I mean, you're hauling the mail, right?
Well,
so,
they were 200 miles an hour at the speedway before they stopped the race.
Yeah, and the way, you know, Advanced Engine Research does our engines, they're all equal. You know, the cars, you know, that's the goal. The cars are supposed to be equal, and then the driver working with their team to make it a little better, and then the driver showing what they can do. So at the speedway, it turns into pack racing, right? For the INDYNXT cars there, and it's pretty dangerous, right? I mean, we know it's racing and we know it is dangerous, but we want those drivers to get oval experience before just putting them out there. I mean, you know, the last one we talked about, you know, David Malukas gets turned and Chris Windham runs into him. You know, and that was a big crash. That's, you know, it's Friday leading into the Indianapolis 500. It's you know, we want things to be as good as they can be and exciting leading into the Indy 500 as well. So we'll keep getting those drivers oval experience, and hopefully that prepares them to run in the only race that's on that oval.
Well, nobody any better to sit in the seat than somebody that's been up through the ranks and raced at that level. You know how to communicate with those kids that are coming up through their aspirations. You've been in that seat to prepare them and tell them what to look forward to. Try to keep them out of those pitfalls along the way. We certainly wish you the best of luck in that area.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's, you know, they're all pretty young, and I've said it before, even with the midget drivers with their families, right? I don't want to see any of those drivers' careers done driving before they're 18 or before they're 25, right? Let's, you know, give them the tools and let them learn. And you know, everything has to happen so fast right now in today's world. You know, sometimes things take a little while to play out and learn and get the experience and be in the right situation to win when you're ready.
Hopefully create that path so they do get that phone call from Roger.
Absolutely.
In the first 20 years.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, I'd really like to ask, what does the series intend to need to do to help a guy like Linus Lundqvist, who is the reigning INDYNXT champion but doesn't have a ride this year? Exactly. I mean, those are the challenges that we talk about frequently. You know, with the added grid to the NTT IndyCar series, you know, with 27 cars, there were a couple drivers from INDYNXT that moved up, right? So every year there's only a limited number of seats available. So if we can't move anybody up, right, then that's a problem too. You take Linus' situation, you know, a great race car driver, you know, ultimate competitor, a great guy. I mean, everything you want in a driver. So what we did last year, I think you guys have probably seen that. You know, it was the amount of money, the $1.2 million. You know, the year before, they didn't pay any race winnings. You know, last year we paid out $700,000 in race winnings, and the other $500 went to the scholarship. And we know in racing, really, it almost always takes a little more money, you know, to do it, to make it all work. So, you know, we adjusted that this year. For this year, hopefully that helps, right? I know Linus is still working on avenues to get something done this year. He's got a test coming up with Ray Hall, you know, and I think he's a guy that just needs an opportunity. You know, he needs one shot to show what he can do, and hopefully that plays out for him.
Super cool to get a little background from guys that are in race control, the directors of the series that we love. We very rarely hear about them, and certainly I think we provided a lot of that for you here today on the Skinny. But to see a guy that honed his racecraft, was very successful in it, kept himself in the industry, and now is in charge of the racing series himself, plays a very vital role. We appreciate everything you've done, man. Thanks for all the great memories when you were driving, and we look forward to a great success there with INDYNXT as well.
Hey, no problem. Thank you guys for having me on.
Levi Jones, now you know the skinny on that man.